Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Filmsquid. I'm Jacob.
I'm Steve-O.
And we're here to talk about movies from all kinds of places, actually. We have a theme today.
We have a multi-faceted theme.
But let's start off with a subject that happened recently, but we kind of want to get our reaction into what happened at the 92nd Oscars.
Yes.
So we had our huge, what we wanted to win, what we think would win, our predictions and whatnot. And, I think we had a pretty good night as far as predictions went,
Oh, yeah.
I haven't actually, I haven't done the math of how accurate we were of like.
We should do that just to put the numbers down.
Yeah. But
overall, that was a really good night.
It was a really good night. Yeah. Let's go through the nominees.
The nominees are just the winners.
Well, both.
Because I think
the list of nominees.
We've talked about the nominees
enough.
I think we could just mention the winners and talk about those maybe a little bit, and then move on.
I like this.
We want to keep this one a little bit shorter because
I like this plan.
Okay, so let's just start from the bottom. Hey, Best visual effects went to 1917.
Surprising.
Remember how we were kind of like going back and forth of like, who actually deserves this? And we couldn't really decide until it's like, okay, well, The Irishman was the only one that like actually made something new that hadn't been done before and achieved what it needed to do. And we're like, okay, if The Irishman won, that would be really good. And then 1917 won. The only thing we really said about it, or the only thing you really said about it, was that some of the explosions and some of the gunfire, other things like that, didn't quite fit.
No. But here's the thing, though. I did see the clip online after I didn't watch it, but I saw the clip of it winning, and the image they presented of here's an example of the movie's visual effects. It showed the burning church that he sees first as he comes out of the hole when he's hiding in the city in France. And then there's the guy over to the right that starts running at him. Well, that was a multifaceted shot that they ended up taking, actually. So here's the thing, though. That was fake, but I was not thinking it was fake. So congratulations right there. It's just I saw things that were bothering me.
But that's not even half the story. So I watched a video that was going over all of the different things about each movie's technical achievements and whatnot. And one of them mentioned how 1917 was the CGI was meant to be completely invisible because it was covering up all of the evidence of a gigantic film set and all the crew members and all the equipment to make it look like it was actually 1917. That's a lot of work.
That's a lot of removal work and replacement work. Yeah.
And as someone who has done a bit of that in digital video editing and visual effects, like not nearly enough, but I've done enough to know that's really kind of painful work and very, very late, just like long, and it's just the same thing over and over, and it's monotonous, and it's just like, okay, that thing is done. It looks okay. No one's going to notice it, and then eventually someone will notice it, but it's like, that is good enough for me because I've been looking at it for 20 hours and I can't see anything new. And it's okay. And then you show it to someone like, what's that thing? Oh, okay. Back to the drawing board. And then the second time is usually like far better. And it's like, okay, well, that works. And it's not just it works. It actually looks okay and it looks good. And just repeat that for every single shot in the entire movie because it's all moving and following the characters. And a lot of the stuff wasn't real, so there was digital things like all the shells, the artillery shells.
Sure, yeah.
Like the vast majority of those were completely CGI. All the tanks, well, not all the tanks, but all the tanks that are close and that you see, those are all fake. Those are all CGI. Like they're not going to bury a tank in the mud just for one portion of the movie
Yeah.
where everybody has to move around it. No. So that was CGI. And just all the footsteps of the crew, all of the tire tracks of the cars, the camera car itself, like when it's moving, all of the various things that just kind of like you wouldn't expect to see in a war zone, like the evidence of things like the tufts of grass that are disturbed, or the boot prints obviously, but like any deformity of the mud, just all of it over the entire course of, was it like 2 hours?
Yeah, 2-hour movie.
2-hour movie, just to make it completely invisible. That deserves more of an award than all of the design that we so self-righteously pointed out as being less than important. It's like Avengers Endgame wasn't all that good. The Lion King was, it was okay, but we're not going to award that because it's a bad thing. The Rise of Skywalker doesn't really rise to the level of Star Wars visually, and The Irishman was actually pretty good. But in 1917, just for the fact that it's invisible and we didn't notice it at all, like, there you go.
That's visual.
That was the point of it.
Yep.
Boom.
Yep.
In the bag.
Congratulations. Film editing.
This one was kind of a surprise, but
we predicted Parasite.
Yeah, we did.
The winner was Ford versus Ferrari.
I can kind of see it because when we first made that episode, it was right after we watched Ford versus Ferrari.
Yes.
And I do remember quite a few things editing wise that were remarkable, or at least not remarkable as like crazy good, but like remarkable as like that was good. That was a good edit. That was a good scene transition. That was a good cut.
Yeah, you mentioned a few to me.
So, the film editing thing, like we talked a pretty long time about Parasite, and it's great editing because it's very tight in the editing department and getting across a lot of information very quickly
To an
in a
audience
foreign
that is
language.
not attuned to that kind of information.
So that was that was well earned.
Mm-hmm.
Best costume design, and I predicted it and wanted it, and it won anyway. Little Women.
Mm-hmm.
There's no surprise there.
Yep. That's its only award for the night.
I know. I was saddened by that, but with the other winners, is not as great a loss as I was anticipating.
Mm-hmm.
Best makeup and hairstyling went to Bombshell, which neither of us have seen.
And I was wrong too. I was giving it to Maleficent.
Right. Best cinematography obviously went to the one that we knew and wanted. 1917, Roger Deakins.
Well,
there was no competition.
Here was the thing. If it went to anybody else, this world is broken. That's what we decided.
Best production design. This one was,
This one hurt just a little bit,
Yeah,
but I
it did.
can see why they would give it to them.
This one went to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Probably for
Redesigning
recreating
LA.
an entire part of a city for 1960s Hollywood.
That's fine. I understand that. That's expensive. But why not 1917? Oh,
Yeah.
That one hurt a little bit. Or Parasite. I wanted one of those two.
Just looking at things about both of those films, it probably went there because a lot of the production design was digital in 1917, which
Probably.
gives even more worth to its win in visual effects.
Yeah.
So, that makes total sense. And giving it to something that had such a huge effort, that's...
Sure. That's like the trade-off, almost, it feels like.
I think we should also give a shout out to Parasite for its production design, because what I thought and what you thought was a house that they found, they built. And that was an actual, like, architectural, like, this could have been designed by a very famous architect for real, and we wouldn't know the difference.
Yep.
And not only that, but it like worked with the script itself.
The house
Like,
is alive.
It's all like
The house is literally alive.
It's perfect for the film.
You've seen Monster House? Don't bother. Watch Parasite.
Or Knives Out.
Yeah. Speaking of
so
which.
there's an example of the opposite. But anyways, we'll talk about that in a moment. Best sound mixing went to 1917.
Okay. I don't think I predicted that one, but I said I wanted Ad Astra, and I would guess Ad Astra was going to be. So if I'm wrong on that, that's fine. But then we were thinking about it, and we were like, 1917. Oh wait, it could.
Yeah. We mentioned a lot of things like that.
It could get it. So I was actually really happy.
The music
to see
was
that.
great in it, and the balance of music, dialogue, and sound
By the
effects was
way,
great.
That artist who sings that song, "I Am a Poor Wayfaring Stranger," he has released officially 3 versions of that song now.
There it is.
Yeah. So if you guys go check out iTunes, you can go find that. It's good. And he doesn't miss a beat. He's got 3 different versions. Anyway, moving on.
In what seems like one of the first times in a while, best sound editing and best sound mixing are 2 different winners. Best sound editing was Ford versus Ferrari.
With good reason.
With very
good reason. I think we both called that.
All of the mechanics involved with a top of the line monster racing car, and all the noises that they make, and all the sounds you hear in the cockpit and outside. Just this thing gives you the feeling of racing, and it is through the sound. I was watching some really cool stuff just about all these movies, and one of the cool things I saw, just because it's the last time we'll see Ford versus Ferrari on this list right now, is they had some really incredible camera gear equipment for shooting those cars. They had obviously like the normal stuff, like following cars with cameras and, you know, the
cranes and the mounts. Yeah.
But they had dummy cars, which is the ones that Christian Bale was actually in, where someone was sitting in like kind of just imagine the car from Children of Men, but with the part of the driver like shifted back to the back part, so you just have like the body of the car and the wheels are functioning.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
But
I get it.
The driver is up on top. And that's what they filmed the majority of the inside things. So he's actually moving. He's actually reacting to what he's seeing and you know, the movement and everything. But he's not driving the car, and he's completely safe because he's in the hands of a professional stunt driver.
Nice.
So that was just great just to see that. And then on top of that, they had the bed rig where they put an actual car on the bed or something like that. And then, or no car. And then they had cameras all around to film all the different things that happen in a race around the camera, like around the main character's car, but related to the other cars. Like when they're passing, when they're bumping, all those things. And they got insanely close. And a lot of times, actually, he mentioned a couple times that they clipped the cameras.
Ooh, jeez.
I'm like, no cameras were lost, no lenses were destroyed. It was just, you know, like the matte box. They just like knocked off the matte box or something.
Oh my.
Because, you know, there's a lot of impact. There's a lot of
they
really
had to be
close
designed
calls.
for that, yeah.
But like
There's
they got
no
close
way.
enough to be like to get the headlights and just like the feeling and all the rain. And it was crazy to see that behind the scenes. So moving on. Best original song went to I'm Gonna Love Me Again from Rocket Man.
By Elton John.
We
We didn't predict that, but that
we
was
didn't really
very...
do anything with the original song because, like, other than Toy Story 4, and you've seen Frozen 2, but other than that, we hadn't seen any of them.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that was the one that was winning all of them, so I'm not going to say I get that point, but that's probably what we would have called anyway.
Yeah.
Best original score
Yes.
went to Hildur Guðnadóttir,
Which we predicted.
which we predicted, and can I just say she had probably one of the best thank you speeches I've heard in a very long time.
Yeah.
Like
it's
just,
up there with what's her name from The Favorite for doing the Queen and her
Olivia
acceptance
Colman
speech.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the most heartwarming, touching, sweet acceptance speeches I've ever listened to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a really good moment. I was really happy just to see her win.
Oh yeah.
And it was genuine too. I mean, she's on a roll this award season, but it's still new to her. She's not jaded at all by this. She's just so floored and overwhelmed by the whole experience. It was really nice to see. Jumping past some of these other categories, which we didn't make a call on. International feature film, Parasite had to win.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, let's jump to original screenplay actually really quick, which went to Parasite. Mm-hmm. Kind of a surprise.
That was a bit of a surprise.
So let's also back up. So can we just acknowledge Bong Joon-Ho for 1 second? Bong Joon-Ho had the night of nights at the Oscars. Walked away with 4 statuettes. Only Walt Disney has walked away with as many
in one night.
And
for arguably less, because he won for shorts.
He won for multiple things.
Documentary and just like not as impressive for one thing.
Exactly.
He like multiple projects, not just one project.
Right. So,
and not with odds seemingly against you.
So yeah, he walked away with 4. So as the night progressed, he first won original screenplay, and he won not that by himself, but he won with his co-writer. Mm-hmm. And so they both go up, they get their Oscars, and you could just see he's just overwhelmed to have an Oscar in his hand, and he's just so excited to be up there. And he could tell he didn't expect that one.
No.
And he was just thrilled that he got one for like something that he personally put into. I guess like this came from his brain, and that's that was the award, writing that out, and with his co-writer putting that on paper, and he was just so happy. And then Parasite won Best International Feature Film, which everyone knew.
Yeah, everyone, it was like a shoe-in.
Yeah,
even he, like, without the original screenplay award, he's just like, okay, yeah, well, this one's definitely...
That was going to happen. and he was happy with that. And so we went up on stage and got that one. And that one he kind of dedicated to his cast, his crew, to Korea.
That was nice.
Which was good.
Almost every time he got on the stage after that, he directed the tension to someone else who deserved it. Mm-hmm. And that was actually very, very nice.
Mm-hmm. And so he, dedicated that to people he knew, a lot of people he knew. That was like the big one, the big dedication. And then he was like, all right, thanks everybody. I've had a great night. I'm going to start drinking now. And then jumping ahead to 2 more, I'm sorry, we're going to get out of this because we got to talk about Bong Joon-ho. Jump ahead to Best Director. And I don't think he had won a director award this award cycle yet. I think most of those were going to Sam Mendes if he won at all. So he, though, wins Best Director. And he is actually floored. But you could tell he was like not believing it.
Him, yeah.
Yes. And like he did not expect.
Not just the fact that he has 3 now, but that he's got Best
director. And he literally said, I thought I was done coming up here for the rest of the night. And this was in what I thought the best dedication part. He immediately turned to the other directors and he said a quote, which I wish I had the quote up.
I think I can remember it. The most personal is the most creative. And then he said, that quote comes from our own Martin Scorsese, and he pointed, and then everybody stood up and started clapping for him, and it was just such a beautiful moment between 2 people who admired each other's work and one who was heavily inspired by the other. And
then he turns to Quentin Tarantino. This was a good moment.
This was really cool.
He's like, dude, back when I was an unknown, you were one of the few who put my movies immediately as they got overseas onto your watch list, and you watched them and shared them with people. I won't forget that. I love you, man. Tarantino, yep. Cinephile to cinephile. And then he just turned to the rest. That was Todd Phillips and Sam Mendes. He's like, guys, I just wish I could take a Texas chainsaw and just cut this thing in half and give it to all of you, because really, I don't know why I'm up here. I really don't. I'm really drinking tonight. And then he goes back down. And then Parasite won Best Picture. Congratulations. And that's his fourth. He didn't speak on that one. I think at that point he was just like,
nope.
Take
he's
it.
Like, he's
I'm
gotten
out.
he's just like, I'm going to let everybody else talk because they got plenty to say.
Yes, they do. And it was a good night for Parasite. Like, Parasite won 4 out of 6.
Yeah.
Not a bad night.
No.
Not a bad night at all. But
4 of the biggest ones.
Yeah. Okay, so that was a big jump. That was international feature.
Yeah, we kind of jumped all around, but we'll get back to some of those.
So then next would be
Best animated feature film, which this was the only one I was disappointed in.
Really?
Because while Toy Story 4 was good, Klaus is my pick. That should have won because of what it's the like only one that's been nominated that's an actual 2D animated film. It's only the only one that's been nominated for years and years and years and years. And on top of that, it was a good story. It was well made, well acted, beautifully animated. And I think I said this, but it's my favorite Santa Claus story. Not just movie, but story.
Would it make you feel any better that the Annie Awards
I knew that, yeah.
blew it away? It blew away the Annie Awards.
Yeah.
It won every
that, yeah.
award that it was
I
nominated
knew that.
for. Yeah. So at least the people of the craft are like...
The people who really know what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And not just the people who only saw Toy Story 4 and How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah. Sure. Thankfully, I'm not.
I mean, this is a good year for animation, though. You had Missing Link, which I've seen parts of it. I haven't watched it, and I kind of feel bad about that because I've seen all the other films by Leica, and from what I've seen, it's like the best that they've done animation-wise, and they get better and better every single movie in terms of like how they animate characters and how it feels to watch these characters, not just in how realistic or how fluid their movement is, but just how appealing their animation is. Like, it just gets better every single year.
Oh yeah, Leica's killing it as far as technicality goes.
The only one that I wasn't sure about was the one that we talked about a little bit, which was on Netflix, I Lost My Body.
Still need to see that, yeah.
So I was kind of disappointed that Toy Story 4 won over Klaus, but you know, what can you do? It's Pixar.
Pixar tends to own it.
Unless they come out with one that's like meh.
So mad that everyone's like, someone else's turn.
Yeah, right.
Which has happened. It's happened before.
Okay, we talked a little bit about Best Original Screenplay, but before we get back to that, let's do Best Adapted Screenplay. Let's Kadoo.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Jojo Rabbit.
That was a surprise.
Taika Waititi took home his first Oscar.
That's good.
Which I was actually really happy with.
Mm-hmm. Like if
it would have been nice if he would have won an award for Hunt for the Wilder People, but I think during that year, because it's his best film, but during that year there was a lot more competition. But this is a worthy entry for his filmography.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
I think it. Other than the fact that Little Women didn't win, he's the only one, and I think I said this during our last episode, he's the only one I would be okay with winning over Little Women, and he won, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that was a little sad. I kind of should have seen it coming because there was only a couple where she won, and then Taika just came in and started sweeping everybody up. That I didn't know that, and so all of a sudden he won, and then I was like, well, same thing. I was glad he won if it wasn't Greta, but I was like, where'd that come from? That was literally out of nowhere. It wasn't, but I was blindsided. Original screenplay.
Okay, so between making those episodes and now, we went to the theater and saw Knives Out. So now we've both seen all of the actual Best Original Screenplay movies.
See, I wanted this and called it for Rian Johnson. I didn't think he was going to win it. I think I called Tarantino, but I wanted Johnson to win. Both wrong.
Yep, and I'm super okay with that.
Same here.
Parasite.
Yeah. That's totally fine with me. We'll talk about Knives Out a little bit more in detail. The actor and actress categories completely called. Everyone completely called. There was no different across any award ceremony.
Yep.
Laura Dern won for Marriage Story and Best Supporting Actress. Best Supporting Actor was Brad Pitt from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Which was his first acting Oscar, by the way.
Yes. He's got a producer, but not an actor. Best Actress went to Renee Zellweger as Judy in Judy Garland. Excuse me. Best Actor, Joaquin Phoenix. Joker as Arthur Fleck.
And no one was surprised.
No one was surprised by any of the actor categories. That was just like, yep. But now we get to Best Director. We got Bong Joon-Ho winning for Parasite. We mentioned that. And Best Picture, Parasite wins.
Boom.
There
it is.
Yeah, I'm pretty okay with that. I think my final tally was 12 out of 19. Actually, which is good. I think normally I get less than 50%. But this was, I'm not sure if I'd say it was a predictable year. I wish Parasite had won more, if that makes sense. And I think I called it for a few more, but then I dropped other ones.
It would have been nice if it won those other technical awards that it deserved, but I mean, it won the biggest ones that it was nominated for.
I mean, South Korea partied.
Yeah.
Regardless. So it was a good night for Parasite. And Bong Joon-Ho, four
Oscars for this same project.
Jeez.
In one night.
When's that going to happen again?
Probably never.
Yeah.
Although now there's probably going to be more international films where they don't have English as the main language.
But do you think it's going to be a while before a foreign film actually wins again?
I think it's going to be a while, but it's going to be in the conversation and more are going to get nominated for sure.
Yeah, I think so too.
But when the one that comes out that everyone's like, okay, this really deserves to be up there. It might not get the most number one votes, but it'll be up there enough to win.
Yeah.
Just like this one probably did.
Yep.
And deservedly so.
Yes. Congratulations, Parasite. That was a very good night. Very good night for movies. Very good year for movies.
Very good.
Speaking of which, 2019, we haven't talked much about it, but we wanted to go over specifically 2019.
It, in pieces
over our
throughout,
predictions because there was a lot of overlap, but we want to get into some more detail about it.
So our 2019 started with actually How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World.
It's not a bad
That's the first
start.
one that we watched in 2019. Which, it's not a bad start. Like that one was decent. For a closing of the trilogy. It closed the trilogy.
Yes, that's true. It
which
did.
For
not many can do.
For animated movies that are a franchise like that have as much marketing pull and merchandising sales as that one does, that's impressive. Just that the fact that they tied most of the ends together and there's not much to go on later, which is totally okay because I think they understand, at least more than some of the other companies, that this won't last forever.
No, it can't. Like these kids are growing up.
Popularity of How to Train Your Dragon, and also the title has never been a good title, anyways.
It's
just a mouthful, and
How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah, it just doesn't flow, and that's another bonus of finishing a trilogy. So you can do something new with a different name. Yep. I've always kind of had a little slight against the name just because I was like,
it works for book one. I
can't say anything else.
Book one. Movie one.
Yeah, I can't say anything else to describe the movies because it's like, train your dragon? Sure. Okay.
How to train.
Dragon?
Dragon.
No, that doesn't work.
How to dragon.
How to dragon. So after that, we saw Lego Movie 2.
It was good.
That's pretty good.
A little forgettable. I mostly listened to the songs.
Yeah. Which you were driving with, actually. That was pretty fun to see. Just to watch you.
I was, actually. I still do.
And then we saw some superhero movies. Before that, we saw Alita Battle Angel.
Yeah, I kind of want to see that again.
Yeah.
And it's getting some buzz for a sequel. Like,
which
really
I'm
big
happy
buzz.
with because I think out of most of the films of that kind of
the manga
make, or even just something that it's original and, well, not entirely original, but it's not really been seen before, and it has a big push as like a big blockbuster type of movie, but it doesn't quite gain the traction that the other ones do, like Marvel's movies, or even surprise hits like A Quiet Place, that can become something gigantic.
Right.
Which it looks like that's going to be something gigantic.
Yeah.
A Quiet Place, which is coming out soon.
Yes.
But yep. Okay. So
we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. So, but Alita Battle Angel, that was one that, like, it had been teased. I don't know if you had been following it, but it had been teased for almost a decade.
Really? I hadn't followed it at all.
Because James Cameron produced it. And he kind of like shopped around for a writer, a director, someone to take the project on, and producers just wouldn't like get on board. And so it just sat there forever, not getting made. And then suddenly it got made and it actually came out, and the technology was there and the animation was incredible and it worked, and it came out and it didn't make much of a splash. Which was unfortunate. I really liked it.
It made a decent splash. Like
the
fans who were going to have the strongest opinions about it were pleased with it, and now they're wanting another one. So that's a good sign right there.
Yeah,
decent year for superhero movies.
Decent.
We've got
probably the biggest year.
We've got a new leader of as far as dollars brought in. At the top of the best-selling movies of all time, Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
We've
talked enough about that. But I'm just to say some more things now that we've been like a year, basically.
I've noticed something. I don't think, just seeing what Marvel is buzzing, at least on the horizon, I'm not sure they're going to try something like that again.
Nope.
They want to, I think they're intentionally going small.
Yeah.
And going for more personal, maybe? Like delve into one person more.
Like which we just talked about with How to Train Your Dragon. Like, it's valuable knowing when to quit something. Not quit entirely, but to quit
that
doing
motion.
Something as big as you're doing it. And Marvel, like, we haven't really heard anything new from, like, after maybe, like, Black Panther 2. Like, we don't really know much about new projects other than the Disney Plus projects.
Mm-hmm. Doctor Strange Multiverse, and then Black Widow coming out this year.
Yeah, but that one was already known
right
before Endgame, which kind of broke some of the things, because everyone's like, but they're gonna make a movie about it and now she's dead,
unless it's a prequel.
Well, it is.
So
that question was answered. It's fine.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad that they have kind of backed off. DC seems to have finally found its footing with Shazam, who it's funny. They thought Batman and Superman was going to be the leads of the DC league. No, it's Shazam and Wonder Woman, and everyone's like, "Oh, we didn't see that coming," but it's totally fine, and it looks like it's going to work really well. And then Joker,
yeah,
blew up everybody's minds, our minds too. Well, my mind at least.
Well, after we thought about it, not directly after coming out of the theater. But
it blew my mind after and during too.
I don't know. For me,
like, it was mostly just where I was watching it. I was like,
right.
I'm normally not in this state, and watching a movie. This is weird, but it's cool.
Right.
Yeah.
For me, coming out of the theater, I was like, obviously I could see the technical skill in the filmmaking, but just because the story was the way it was, just left me with an icky feeling. And I think before, just the day after, I was, still kind of in that kind of, okay. It's like when you see something and you react to it in a way and you're surprised by your reaction, and you're like, that wasn't a very good reaction, and you're like, maybe I should try to like
forget
change
about
myself or like find out why I reacted that way, because that movie kind of does that to you. It's like, it's not a pretty movie.
No, it's not pretty at all.
And it doesn't deal with things that you would typically go to the movies to watch.
Yeah, definitely.
But all the filmmaking and all the performances and the acting and everything, like, it's a fantastically made film.
Yeah.
And it really does something that we haven't seen, especially in superhero films.
Yeah.
Well, comic book films. It's not a superhero film.
No,
there's no superhero at all.
Well, sort of, but not really.
For comic book films.
Yeah.
Which plenty of people have said it could be a normal film without the name of the Joker attached.
Oh yeah, that's
it just
kind of
doesn't
the
have
interesting part about it.
It just didn't have if it didn't have it, it wouldn't have the power to sell tickets, because the title of Joker sold tickets, which is valid because it's, an interesting take on a character and they're doing something experimental with it, and that's to be admired.
Also, Spider-Man had a pretty traumatic year. Had a great movie, best selling Spider-Man movie ever. Almost got kicked out of the Marvel Universe. Was thankfully brought back because Tom Holland apparently drunkenly called Bob Iger. And they said, I don't even know what he said. I haven't watched the full video, but apparently he was like, let's try to work out a deal. And they have the ish.
They worked out a deal.
Something happened that made Spider-Man come back, which, as a Marvel fan, I'm happy. Yeah. I wasn't disappointed or upset that he was gone. I was shocked, but I was like, okay, well, that's what happens.
Yep. When I heard the news that Sony had cut ties with Disney, I was like, okay, that's not going to be for long, or it's going to be completely permanent and it's never going to come back. We'll know in a week or two or a month, and that's what happened.
Yep, exactly. Another superhero, last one, Dark Phoenix, kind of dropped the X-Men with a big thud. It probably, looking in hindsight, they're probably wishing they had dropped it at Logan and then just rebooted. And they're trying to reboot, but then it got caught up. Like that what's that movie? New Mutants keeps trying to release it, but it's been backed up for like 2 or 3 years now.
And now it's
like
actually coming out? ?
Something like that. But now Disney's got a hold of X-Men, so who knows what future that means. Could be a good one.
This will be the last one that's from Fox.
I think so, yes.
That's had a heavy amount of effort put in by Fox itself.
Right. Animation had a pretty good year. We had some, at least on ones I've seen, Detective Pikachu, not animated, but a good video game movie that came out. And Pikachu and the animals are just adorable. Toy Story 4, we've talked about that. That was solid. It was good. It was more of a Woody Toy Story, but it was good. Klaus, Netflix flexing its muscles with 2D animation. That was incredible.
Looking forward to what that studio puts out next.
Right. Frozen 2, excuse me.
Which I still haven't seen.
You have not seen Frozen 2?
Nope.
Okay, I won't say much about it. I'll just say I understand it was not in the nominees for Oscars, and you'll probably see why too. Just like, yeah, it's a good sequel. It works, but it's not iconic. That's what I'm looking for.
Right.
Let it go, and Frozen are iconic, and Frozen 2 is good. Disney. This was just a big year for Disney. Can we just say that? I think they had like 7 movies that topped $1 billion at the box office. Sadly, Lion King was one of them. I think Aladdin topped it as well. 2 live action quote unquote remakes. Aladdin actually count. There's been some split about Aladdin lately. I like it. I still haven't seen it. You still haven't seen it either. I won't say much about it either.
I know there's for a couple of these I'm going to be like, I still haven't seen it.
Well, there's not much left as far as things that I've seen, at least on the list. A lot of the Oscar ones, we had Marriage Story, Ad Astra, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Parasite, Ford vs. Ferrari, Knives Out. Oh, what'd you think of Knives Out?
I loved it.
Yeah, let's talk about Knives Out a little bit.
Let's talk about it right now.
Yeah.
So, I'm kind of disappointed in myself that I didn't see it like when it first came out.
Yeah, it was easy to slip by. I will give you that.
So, gosh, this one was so cool, so interesting, so fun.
It was
you could
very
tell
fun.
everybody was having so much fun.
Yeah.
Like everybody, the cast, the crew, the director, the set dresser was having fun.
For goodness sakes. Yes. Just going in, you were like, this is going to be a good ride.
Yeah. So, the plot and the premise and everything, I love how it almost, like he's always had that phrase attached to him. Rian Johnson has had the phrase subverting expectations like attached to him, like since Looper, and then
Last
Jedi being the biggest one, because he did so many things that were like, is that
was
allowed in a Star Wars movie?
That was almost calculated, how he took every question and basically answered the opposite everyone would expect.
Right, which he made an interesting point when I was listening to something that he it was interviewed about. He was interviewed about Knives Out, and he mentioned when you go into a genre film, you have not only all the writing tools you have for any other film, but you have the rules of that genre to play with. And when you go to a theater and you watch a genre film, you know the rules, you expect things about those rules. And so when you see the rules being broken, you know those rules are being broken. And that's one thing that, like, it makes total sense looking back on it with those three films, especially Looper, Last Jedi, and Knives Out. He really likes to play in the sandbox of a single genre without stepping too far crazily out, like mixing
Some
genres and doing something like that. Yeah. But he goes into a genre film and he just like does something that he would want to do. He just does something new and interesting.
See, here's the thing. It actually solidifies the idea that he literally just played in the wrong sandbox with Star Wars The Last Jedi, because Looper and Knives Out have gotten nothing but praise.
Yeah.
So he just messed with a crowd that just happens to be the most toxic fan base in the universe. So it's like, could you then fault him for not understanding the audience? Yeah, you could. But he was just, that's what he does, and he was just doing what he does. And
I don't remember what it was, but there was a meme where someone was pointing at The Mandalorian, and then the person pointing is like, look, it's something that the Star Wars fan base actually likes. That makes total sense, because nothing that Star Wars has put out other than The Mandalorian, like, the entire fan base has liked.
Since Disney
even the original trilogy.
Oh, that's Clone Wars, but yeah.
Now,
yes,
but when it first came out, there was
its
quite
movie
a few people
was
who were
huge, like huge negative response.
Well, even the show itself, because it was so geared just stylistically to children.
It took a while to grow.
Yeah,
that's true.
So,
it had to build its audience.
People could tell over time that it was better than the prequels.
Oh yeah, because it was a guy who was a fan.
Timeless.
Filoni is a fan. Same with Jon Favreau with Mandalorian. They are fans, and that's why they actually can make something in that universe that is worthy and endurable and can last and people enjoy. But back to Knives Out.
Yes. So one thing about it that I found interesting. Should we spoil it? I mean, it's been long enough that whoever wanted to see it.
What are we spoiling? I mean, let's look at it this way. Ryan spoils what happens almost immediately.
Yeah.
That's not really the point, though.
Yeah.
It's more of how do the movie is more of how do they get away with it, and more of who was where when things happened.
Yeah.
That's more the questions we're looking for. So yes, we can
given
spoil
what
that.
what I just said about Rian Johnson and genres and playing and breaking with the rules intentionally, just to mess with the audience, basically. You go into it and it's marketed heavily as a whodunit film.
Mm-hmm.
It's a murder mystery, as this person was killed and we don't know who did it, and all these people who are his family are despicable. And then there's the detective coming in and figuring it out, right? It's a story we've seen a lot, and it's a story that never gets old, really, unless it's the same story that's being remade and retold and, you know, all that. But anyways, nothing in particular that I'm talking about, but so we come into it thinking this is a murder mystery. We're going to watch this detective solve a mystery over the course of 2 hours, right? Well, within the first 15 minutes, it's very apparent that it's not entirely a murder mystery and more a anti-murder mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens, and this is not so much a spoiler because a lot of the tension and the thrill is seeing what happens after you know certain plot points. And it's established very early that you can't trust any of the characters other than the detective and the
Marta.
2 cops.
Yeah. Well, you can trust Marta.
Well, even then, because when you're going into a Rian Johnson film, you should probably not play into expectations or play into the things that movies typically do to like put up the credibility of a character or like get you to trust a character. Like sometimes,
which this movie really did, actually.
Yeah. So this one, Marta has a condition where if she tells a lie, she gets...
Or hears a lie, I think.
No, it's just when she tells a lie.
Right, yep.
When she tells a lie, she gets so anxious that her body has a physical reaction, she pukes. Which is useful if true, which I doubted it was true for like all of 5 minutes. Because as soon as that trait was introduced, I was like, that's convenient. She could be really, really, really smart and manipulative and just playing this entire family. And that could be what the movie's about, is just seeing that unravel and her being completely untouched because she's just so smart and she can fake it and also control her own vomit.
Uh-huh.
So she like controls when people know she's lying,
Yep.
right? That's a very powerful thing to do.
Mm-hmm. So
I was like, I wasn't putting her off the table just as Benoit Blanc didn't put her off the table the entire time. I wasn't putting any trust into characters other than the detective, because in these movies you can trust the detective. But well, I haven't seen one that really like plays with that too much.
The only one that I think that maybe plays with that is Sherlock. That's
true.
Pretty much it.
True, because he's not entirely a detective. He's
a high-functioning sociopath.
Or he's just super bored.
Yes.
And just needs something to do.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I can solve this really quickly, but there's more fun to be had here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So he kind of like forgoes the detective side. But anyways, so I trusted Benoit Blanc, but I didn't trust any character, including Marta, until, well, so to establish the incredibility of all the other characters, we see the movie do flashbacks. And through that story, through that development and that storytelling, we know when we are shown something that happened, what we see is true. And that continues on throughout the whole movie. When we see a flashback, what we see is true. What people say about it or what they don't say about it can be a lie or a truth. But what we see is true. And it establishes that very, very effectively, where it's like, if the characters lie, we know it because just through the performance and what we see compared to what they said, they're all lying.
Right.
And then after we establish the fact that Marta has this physical reaction to lying, to herself telling a lie, then we go back and see probably the best scene in the entire movie. And this like immediately put down all of my distrust of her, because it lasted so long and it was so well acted and so well written that it just couldn't be false. There was like, the entire movie would fall apart if it was false. So I was like, okay, I can trust Marta. So what's going on? And that was the thrill of it, is like you're following this character, and you're basically like you're forced to trust the character. Whether or not you do initially, everybody trusts the character at this point. And then we see what is true, what like from the opening well, not the opening, but the opening sequence where we see this man and his slit throat. He's killed himself, apparently. But then we go back and we see he's actually killed himself.
There was no murder.
But there's enough evidence around it for like anyone to see that it was not a suicide, just based on the evidence that they have.
Yep.
And it's very possible that Marta, even though she's completely innocent and was actually trying to save his life in multiple ways,
could still be framed
and put away, and her mother deported, and because she's an undocumented immigrant, and it was just like that being the stakes instead of the fact that someone died and there's money and family and, you know, that kind of mess that is very good for a drama and very good for just a fun movie, just banter between family. Like, that's always fun.
Oh,
but
just ask David.
Just knowing that isn't the focus of the movie, and the focus is this character that we know and trust and love now could be framed for something she didn't do but she witnessed, and that's the hook, that's the core, that's the thrill, and man, does it run with that. And it really, this is such a fun ride.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That does not spoil very much, actually.
No, it doesn't. That's the fun part about this movie.
And that's enough to get anyone who's paying attention to those kinds of movies going, because that's just talking about it like gets me excited.
Yeah,
I want to see it again.
Yeah, you should. There's so many little things in this movie that you have to be paying attention to. There's clues that we're given that eventually do get a payoff, but not in the way we were expecting. Like, maybe we were expecting it to be like a big reveal, but no, it was just a clue that just keyed in on some characters. Or, oh, this character is kind of almost a throwaway character.
But the reason I said
this character made the whole plot flip, kind of thing.
Yep.
So just little things like that you have to really watch out for. And it's so fun to predict and try to predict, but it's also difficult to, because Ryan has
he has such control over everything, and there's so many pieces.
He's changed what we're expecting.
Jigsaw.
Exactly.
It's just this giant Rubik's Cube made of a million pieces that's shifting, and you cannot see where it's going unless you already know what's happening. It's like, and the reason I said it's an anti-mystery murder is because we see that she's innocent, and we know that she witnessed a suicide, and now we want to know if she's going to get caught.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone is going to put, you know, obstacles in her way, or find clues of things that she did do, but not in the motive that they think she did them.
Yeah.
And it's just this whole back and forth where she's doing things to prevent her own innocence being tarnished, because it's like, and then it's like an interesting play of like, well, she's destroying evidence of something that actually happened that could lead to something, but it's not going to lead to anything, but it could lead to the worst thing.
Exactly. Suspicious activity that
it's
she
like,
ends up
she's
committing.
doing something that incriminates her now.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the fact that she's innocent drives the plot, but now she's actively doing things that could incriminate her at any moment.
Yes. So
and we're rooting for her the entire time.
Do you see why I wanted this to win original screenplay?
Yes.
I didn't think it would. I think it was a little bit of a long shot, but yeah, there was a reason this was so high on, like, please, just recognize something. He'll get one eventually, I think, for just the writing. I don't think it's long.
After we watched the movie, you asked me and someone else who recently watched it, you asked if we trusted a certain character, and they said yes, and I said no.
I said yes too, actually.
You did.
I did. I got pulled in, and I was like, I'm such an idiot.
Yeah.
I should have seen that coming.
Yeah. So
I mean, I had fun being
one
fooled.
thing. Just like through through all the study or research or, whatever, just watching movies and paying attention and analyzing film and all that, one of the things when it's something like this, where there's a story and you're meant to trust one character, either that character turns out to be untrustworthy, and so your initial trust of them is like, oh, I didn't, and that's the twist. And you're like, oh, crap, I've been following the villain this whole time. And then there's the other side where you trust the character and you're meant to trust the character, but then that character trusts somebody. And through you trusting them, you are inclined to trust the new character. And that's where a lot of twists happen.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of people get like thrown off. It's like, this character that we trust is trusting someone. We should trust that person. Nope. Don't do that. And that's where I was like, okay, I don't trust this character.
Well, in my defense,
but yeah, okay.
What I was thinking of was,
if we say too much anymore, I think we'll actually spoil the best parts of the film.
Yeah.
Well, not the best parts, but the best feelings. Just for the first watch, because it is such a fun first watch, and everything that we've spoiled is in the first 20 minutes.
Right. Here's the thing, though. I was totally going anti-red herring in terms of who I should trust. Because I was like, bad person, being presented as a better person, also being presented as a better person. Actually, not so great. Flips back. And Marta actually still is on good terms with quite a few of them. So it's hard to tell just backing up when you separate yourself going, wait, would I do the same thing? What am I really watching? Like, it's hard to actually separate yourself from that motion of the movie because this movie just sucks you in, and that's the fun of it. You are literally pulled along for the ride. So awesome. Knives Out. There's a movie we have talked about now.
There we go. Boom.
Nice.
All right. That was one off the bucket list.
So there's a few movies that I think we should talk about singularly. Eventually. That would be like Parasite. We should probably talk about 1917 singularly a little bit, though I think we gushed over both of those pretty hard during Oscar season.
I think so.
There's a few that are on my mind, but
we didn't really talk much at length about Little Women.
That's true. Yeah. Should we do that now? All right. Let's talk about Little Women. So how many times have you seen it? Once? We've both seen it once. Okay, we've all seen it once. So you have not seen the 94 version yet, though?
Nope.
No. Okay.
But I have read the book.
Which
it was a long time ago, but I have read the book, yeah.
Okay, so we kind of balance each other out. So the 1994 version, I think I mentioned this last week. We were talking about the writing structure. 94 is told chronologically. The 2019 is told like a triangle, like a pyramid, and then they meet at the same spot. And certain things are done really well, like some of the focus on some characters in the new one. I love how they focused on as many people as they can. What's her face? Meg. Thank you. Meg's story with her husband. Like, my sister saw Little Women actually just recently, and she commented on the scene where Meg wanted to and buys that big fancy dress, and it just causes immediate tension in their home, and my sister was like, that's real. That's a real scene right there, and they did a really good job handling that and just bringing that real marriage emotion into the actors too, the writing as well, and they pulled it off so well. And the nice thing about all of these little things is those weren't covered in the 94 movie. It was the 94 movie is mostly about Jo, which she's the main character. Yeah. But this one does such a good job giving everyone their due. Like Beth's relationship with the grandfather.
Oh, that was so wonderful.
That is like a sentence in 94. That was given so much time in this one. Like Beth became a fully fleshed out character.
I do remember it. Like there's not a whole lot that I remember about the book because it was so long ago, but I got the gist of it. So some of the scenes, like now my memory is not tainted, but like it's influenced by this new movie, because it's like all the characters they have 3 dimensions. They all have 3 dimensions. They all have fears. They all have wants. They all have flaws, and they're not cut to just a sentence, like you said. So I don't remember if those 2 stories had as much development in the book, but regardless, it fits perfectly with the story and the characters. So even if it was a shorter scene in the book and a longer scene in the new movie, it's perfect.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. What did you think of the acting in this one?
The acting was stellar. Stellar. This was probably the best cast of 2019.
Even more than Parasite?
The thing about it is, I know the only thing that detracts from that statement is a lot of these actors we've seen before in very, very, very iconic roles. So it's like we have a predisposition to what they're going to be doing in their characters, because we just kind of know what they do in other characters that are similar or maybe not similar.
That's true.
But with Parasite, we're completely clean slate, completely fresh.
It's a nice feeling, actually.
It is nice. And then reading about it, like a lot of those actors have been in the game for decades.
In Korea, yeah. They're
big
names.
Extremely well known in Korea. And that would influence them if we were Korean. So I think it's unfair to make that judgment, but just based on what we know about the actors and the actors that we've already seen, I think this was the best cast movie of 2019.
Saoirse Ronan does an amazing job as Joe. Did you like, I can't pronounce his last name, Timothy, I'll just call him Timothy. Timothy
Chalamet.
Chalamet.
It's French.
Chalamet. There's like an E and a T that are throwing me off in there.
It's the French silent T.
It's Chalamet.
Timothy
Chalamet. Did he impress you as Laurie?
Yes, he did.
Mostly I asked that because I do not like Christian Bale as Laurie in the 94 version.
And you've told me this. I remember you saying that, and I think you said it on our last episode too. So, I was not expecting that. Probably because I don't remember much about his character in the book, and I think that's also due to because I haven't seen the 90s version, or any of the other versions, because they've made a lot of films.
There's many.
There's one that I do want to watch from the 30s or 40s with Katharine Hepburn as Joe. And that I'm really interested in.
Is she a young lady at that point?
I don't know exactly, but I'm interested in it.
That is interesting.
That went on my watch list when I learned about it. So thank you to the friend who said that, if you're listening. So I thought Timothy did an incredible job. Like, I wasn't expecting it. I don't remember much about the character. And so him coming into that role and like just bringing that character to life, like, it was a treat. Yeah. And it contributes to why I said it was one of the best cast films. Because he does amazingly as that character.
Yeah, I hope he does more roles like that. I don't really like him much, to be honest.
I felt that.
he's had okay. When I've seen him, I've liked him, but the things he likes to pick, I'm just like, dude, what's wrong with you? And I don't know, but he gets a lot of praise, and I can see why. He's got some chops. But there's just something about him that just puts me off a little bit. But it didn't in Little Women, so I was like, okay, I'll give you a shot. He
can act, so give him that.
I knew that. I knew he can act.
I know, but he can act outside of the feeling that you get from just seeing him.
Right.
So
yeah.
that's worth something.
So I feel like he has been typecasted into a role, and I feel like Little Women was a slight break out of that.
Okay.
There's a movie I actually am interested in seeing with him called The King, and it's about Henry V, and it's not Shakespearean, but I think it takes place over Henry V's life. I'm not quite sure where it timelines in, but people are saying there's not a lot of really good reasons to watch that movie except to watch his acting chops. Like, he does something with his voice that's actually really impressive to a lot of people. Like, he is able to drop his cadence really low, and it gets like gravelly and like harsh. And I was like, oh, interesting. I'll check that out. So I want to see him do more things. I will give him that.
He's in my most anticipated film of 2020,
I
Dune.
I know.
Directed by Denis Villeneuve.
In the main role.
So you're going to see him.
I know.
Anyway, you're going to see him in more things.
Oh, man.
I guess it's because he has kind of he's kind of cast a spell on middle-aged women, and you're not a middle-aged woman. So that probably is the case. It's like things that use him kind of play that up.
Ugh, that's so weird.
I know. But that's
so
like
bizarre.
all of the conversation I've seen outside of Dune. All the conversation I've seen about Chalamet has been from like women who are married and have kids. Or like 30s and 40s.
See, maybe that's the reason I haven't attached to him, because he hasn't.
That might be the reason, and that might be a reason to see him in more things to see when he breaks out of that, because I'm sure he's broken out of that already.
Well, he's coming out in June, so hopefully that does it. But it'd be sad if the movie got tarnished. I know that movie's going to be good.
There was one.
And if he tarnishes it, ow!
There was one of his roles that I noted. It's a movie starring him and Steve Carell about a father and a son.
Oh yeah.
And the son gets horribly addicted to drugs, and the father's like really having a very hard time with it, and the son is obviously having a hard time with it. And I don't remember that.
I think it's called Beautiful Boy.
Yeah, it's called Beautiful Boy.
Yeah.
That one was, I think, out of all the films I looked at in his acting roles, I think that was the most, the one that got me interested the most in seeing what he can do.
Okay.
So maybe we should try to find that and watch it, because it's got Steve Carell too.
Yeah.
In a serious role.
Steve,
which he's excellent in serious roles.
Have you seen Foxcatcher?
No.
Okay. Yeah. Well, as soon as I saw that, Steve Carell's acting was like, oh my, this guy can act. This is not just The Office, Michael. He can do things. Filmsquid.
Okay, that was a long tangent.
Let's list 2019 favorites. Actually,
okay.
Let's talk about 2019 that was released.
Right.
And then what I want to do is let's go over the movies that we saw in 2019 that were not released in 2019 that hit us the best or the hardest, or we just loved them. I already have two. We already talked about two of them back in July last year. They're with very good reason. We're going to push those movies till we die, I have a feeling. But let's talk about 2019. What's your list?
Should I start from the top? Because we've already talked about these movies anyway, so it's not like we should lead into something with anticipation.
I mean,
1917. That was my favorite film of 2019.
Okay.
Now anything after that is very difficult for me
to actually pin down.
There's
by number.
So many good movies, and I don't know, especially now that I've seen all these Oscar nominated ones and Knives Out, and rewatched a couple of them as well. It's very, very difficult to choose.
It's fine. That's fine. This was a good year. That's a good problem to have.
So 1917 is still my favorite of the year. And just everything that I've read about both Little Women and Parasite. Those are my number 2, but I don't know which one yet like takes that title as number 2, which is less important, but that's okay. And then for number 4, I think I'm going to go with Klaus.
Okay.
And I have no idea from there, like, any order. I haven't really thought about, because I've seen so many in the last 2 months that have blown me away.
It's true. Yeah.
So let's go to your
understandable
top 4 right now. Just do those.
I did
right
5 now. Actually.
Okay.
1917 again, number 1.
Worthy.
Yes. Number 2, Parasite. I want to see this again. I've seen 1917 twice now, but I want to see Parasite again. I think I will soon. But I have a question about this movie, and I think I mentioned it last show. I want to see how it holds up in the second viewing, because the first viewing is so insanely mind-blowing, and you're on the edge of your seat the entire time. You don't know what's going to happen. Now that I know what's going to happen.
And just to step into what we've already talked about in this episode, it doesn't subscribe to a genre.
No.
It starts off as a satirical comedy / drama / like social commentary.
Mystery.
And then it goes like hard into a completely different direction.
Yeah.
And it's a palpable turn, not so much like plot twist, like something revealed about the characters, but like just the situation changes dramatically, and it's like nothing I've ever seen that development.
Yeah, that's insane. And just the fact that was such an experience to see. I had to give it to the number 2 spot. Number 3, I gave to Avengers Endgame. I don't think a movie like that is ever going to happen again. And it, in a year where a lot of things closed and finished, Endgame was the only one that I can recall off the top of my head that ended satisfactorily.
Yeah.
So to see that happen makes me appreciate how rare that is, to just close that magnanimous of a story so well. That was extremely impressive, and that was a good time in theaters. Number 4, I gave to Little Women. I was very surprised by that movie, about how much I liked it. I was like, I know I'm going to like this.
It's so wonderful.
I knew I was going to like it. I was like, yeah, this is going to be great. It's going to be good. I didn't know you could do so much with a movie that I was already familiar with, that I already liked.
Yeah.
And
a story, not a movie, because both of them are adaptations.
Yes, correct. But I thought I knew what it was going into, but I didn't. And then I was like, okay, I had
seeing
to almost,
something from a new perspective.
Yeah, I had to like back off and go, wait, stop. I'm not watching what I think I'm watching. I got to literally back off and go, okay, thinking mode.
Right.
Like I was expecting to coast, but I had to think.
On that note, one thing that I did say when I was talking to another friend about it is they were kind of complaining about Hollywood's obsession with sequels and reboots and adaptations. And then I said, have you seen Little Women? And then I was like, Little Women is proof that some stories deserve to be retold, just for the simple fact of having people who don't know the story and may never know it get to experience it for the first time. That is a worthy way to readapt a movie from something else, whether that's originally in a movie or a public domain story like these, or something that was just so good the first time around, but nobody's seen it because it hasn't been like touched or shown in 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
That was just my extra 2 cents on something I've already given $50.48 on.
Technically, you've given $12.
True.
The 5 spot. So I actually first made this list before I saw 1917 and Parasite.
Oh.
So I had to drop 2 movies off. the 3 movies that were vying for the 5 spot, and it might change a little bit down the road, were Jojo Rabbit, Knives Out, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. After some thought, I realized Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is not Tarantino's best craft.
Well,
I thought it was going into some things and walking away from it, but that might have been the first experience of me just walking out of a theater for the first time watching Tarantino.
True.
So
that is a different feeling.
Yes. So
True.
My feeling was definitely more blown away than yours.
First, when you said that, I was like, really? Are you going to stand by that statement, Jacob? But then I was like, okay, that was your first experience from a Tarantino theater.
I mean, it's not my favorite Tarantino movie.
No,
I've only seen 3. It's not my favorite. I was just like, that was really good.
Which for someone with the perspective of seeing all of them and loves all of them, and seeing this one, it's like, this one's good. Definitely not his best, but it's good.
Uh-huh.
And I wish I'd seen some of them in theaters.
Yes.
But yeah, now that you say that, I understand where you're coming from with that. So your initial reaction, at least.
Yes. So the second reaction, it might get knocked down a notch. And Knives Out mostly just solidified. I've seen it twice now. So it kind of was just like, yes, this is a good movie. It's a fun ride. I liked it for that. I want to see Jojo Rabbit again and see if it goes up. I have a feeling it will.
I think
Actually,
it will.
And if it does, then it might knock Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I haven't seen that twice yet either. True. So at the moment, I'm giving Once Upon a Time in Hollywood its due because that was just a ride. Because the way we watched it, we watched it at the Hollywood Theater in film print. That was just gold.
Yeah, that's just the way that you watch a Tarantino film.
Yes, and the crowd and the people running the theater knew that.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just a fun experience. But that aside, now that it's had some time to think, it's still Once Upon a Time in Hollywood takes that 5 spot, but Jojo Rabbit might edge it out. We'll see. But that's the 5 as it stands for
pending
released
rewatch
in 2019. Now, as far as what we watched in 2019 that was not released, this could be movies
just
that were
new to us.
That some of them have probably been discussed and talked over several times. Some that have been we've discussed and
we're going to talk about them anyway.
We are, and I have no shame.
So, just to start off, we've already mentioned it. The very first movie that we watched new, both of us, instantly became our favorite for a very long time during this year. And that movie that we watched for the first time was The Third Man. Now, this one is one of the finest films that I'd ever seen. And it deserves its spot on a lot of lists. Yeah. It's like it's the best noir film I think I've seen. And that was actually kind of difficult to make that decision until I've seen that movie. It's the best noir film I've seen.
Really?
I think so.
Okay.
Which it's followed closely by some like Humphrey Bogart movies.
Okay. Yeah.
But
okay.
I think I can safely say that it's my favorite noir film.
Sure. Do that.
And then I watched for the first time Tombstone.
Oh,
Which you guys watched that at Christmas, and then I watched it later on when you guys felt like
so that was a 2018 for me.
That was a year ago.
Yes.
So
that'd be number 2 for you?
That was the second film that was new for me, yes.
Oh, I see, yeah.
And then we watched, you watched A Quiet Place.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not, I'm going to disappoint you. That's not in my favorites, but that was good.
Yeah.
I may have to see it again and it might go up, but first watch was.
Yeah. I'm anticipating this new one because it's going to be in the theater and you're going to see it in the theater.
Of course I'm seeing it in the theater.
No, I know, but I thought when I saw it in theaters, I was like, this is absolutely incredible. And seeing it again on a small screen, it doesn't do it justice. You still get a really good film, but the theater experience just elevates that type of film.
Uh-huh.
So, come March something, I don't remember exactly what date it is, but when that comes out, I'm not only just to see the film, but just to see your reaction to that type of film in theaters.
Yeah, I'm going to be blown away. I just know it.
Okay, so that was February of last year. For new films that didn't release in 2019. In March, we watched First Reformed, which
Very
we
interesting.
haven't talked about yet.
We haven't because
We've
have
been
thoughts.
kind of saving it to try and work it into something that we want to pair with a couple other films.
Right. I still think
But
we
yeah.
should do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we'll just say this. First Reformed, very interesting. Very bizarre.
Yeah, it's out there.
Like
It's
I
a little messed up.
I think I put it into my list of weirdest films I've ever seen.
Yeah, it deserves a spot on there.
Yeah. So we'll save that one for later, though.
We watched. I mean, we've always been watching foreign films, but I think the first foreign film that we watched that was new. I mean, Third Man is British, so it doesn't really count. But first foreign language film that we saw was one that neither of us had seen anything about. We just picked it up at the library, and that was 3 Outlaw Samurai.
Right.
Which I was very impressed with. You not so much, probably because you fell asleep a couple times.
I fell asleep right in the middle. I saw most of it.
You saw most of it, yes. I was very impressed with it. It's not quite a Kurosawa, but it does have a lot of really good things about it.
You know, I actually noticed, I think that was part of it. Like, this isn't Kurosawa. Like, Kurosawa's the master.
See, I knew when we were watching it, I'm like, okay, I can see Jacob like judging this just based on the fact that it's Japanese, it's about samurai, and it's not Kurosawa, so it doesn't have the same panache about it.
It's true, it didn't. It was much more rugged.
But I liked it. I really liked it.
That's fair. That's totally fair.
I rewatched Apocalyptic, so you haven't seen it. Anyway, I thought, yeah, okay. Then we watched, in actually quite a ways later, we watched in July, in theaters, we watched Whisper of the Heart.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think for both of us became our number one of 2019 that we discovered.
Definitely.
Yeah. So
Definitely.
It topped The Third Man, and we've already raved about The Third Man, and we've raved about Whisper of the Heart, and now we can safely say that was our favorite movie of 2019.
Yep.
And it came right at halfway point.
Yeah, that was a good moment. That was a really good
Literally
moment.
July 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go back a little bit because I did see some movies separately. I saw In Bruges, which was Martin McDonagh's, one of his previous films, starring Colin Farrell and Ralph Fiennes and what's his name? The guy who plays Mad Eye Moody. You know who I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yes, I know who you're talking about.
Brendan
Gleeson?
Yes, Brendan Gleeson.
Okay.
This
yeah. Whew.
This
yeah,
one was... So, this one was it's tough to say this, but it was delightful. And the reason I say it's tough to say it is because it's a black comedy. It's a dark comedy.
Yeah.
It's Irish, so it takes that kind of rough around the edges approach to like characters and storytelling. And it does not leave you with an entirely good feeling just because of what happens, but it's still like, it's so funny, but it's like, why am I laughing at that? Oh man. But it's so good. And it's just, it's filled to the brim with just hilarious moments of rage and accents and insults. It's just, it's dripping with attitude, and I love it. Not quite like the attitude, like an action hero, like I'm a boss, I'm gonna mess you up, but like just like it's about hitmen,
bad attitudes.
It's about terrible people who feel guilty and throw tantrums and insult each other and just talk at length about a specific thing, and it's so funny. But it's also so sad.
Oh dear.
So that one was a treat. And then I watched The Fisher King.
Oh,
with Jeff Bridges and Robin Williams.
I've been wanting to watch that.
Watch it.
Okay.
It's really good.
Don't tell me anything.
It's really good.
Okay.
And it's heartbreaking and touching and funny at times. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Which is basically everything that Robin Williams has done.
Yes.
But with Jeff Bridges also pulling in a nice performance.
Two movies that I saw up to that point that I want to mention. I finally saw Get Out.
Right.
We talked about that a little
bit.
That was really surprisingly good.
The only movie that, for me, walking out of the theater, I felt paranoid.
Really?
Watching it. The only movie I've ever felt like that.
I felt so happy at the end. Like the payoff was so great.
Yes,
I was like, that was just what I needed.
Okay,
and
so
I went away like, I do not care about the horror that I just saw.
Right?
I am just so glad.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So obviously that was a part of it. I was like, this is, wow, that was such a good ending. That was just such a good story and such a good film. But seeing it in theater elevates all of the horror elements.
I'm sure.
And while it's still really funny, and just bear with me when I say this, but that's why people don't get a lot of the humor of it. I was reading things and watching things about it, and like, black people found it so funny, way funnier than I found it.
Mm-hmm.
But just thinking about it and going back on it, like, that makes total sense because it really is very funny. But walking out of the theater, so there's a reason why I say that, because I saw it at a late showing in Portland. Oof. It was the only showing I could get. And it was like one of the last showings of the last times that it was ever shown when it was first out in theaters. And so I was like, okay, if I'm going to see this in theaters, it's going to be this time. And I was like, okay, I could do that. And there was plenty of people in the theater. Like, it wasn't empty. But just walking back onto the streets of Portland, it was at Regal Fox Theater. There's plenty of lights around. But
you're in the
just
Lloyd
walking
Center, though,
in,
right?
No, Regal Fox.
Regal
Fox Tower.
Oh.
The Tower Theater.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. That's in downtown Portland.
Yep.
So, but right next to it is a nice big parking lot or big plot of land. It's pretty open. There's plenty of lights. My car's right over there. But it's still unavoidable. You're still walking through downtown Portland at like 11 p.m.
Not to mention the first scene does a really good job at freaking you out about walking at night.
But it also really instills in you this sense of paranoia.
Yeah.
Like, you're just paranoid
about everything.
You're just anxious about like the smallest things that you observe about someone. And it's just like that, just like I could almost hear a ringing in my ear just walking to my car, even though there was no such thing, and I don't have tinnitus, so it doesn't matter. But like, I could hear it just because of the feeling that I got from walking out of that movie.
Oof.
So yeah, that's all about I have to add to that.
Another one I wanted to mention was I saw Fight Club for the first time.
Oh yeah,
which I have discovered takes multiple viewings for. Multiple viewings.
That is one of those
to solidify what you feel about it.
Actually, David Fincher in general is like that.
That's true.
He's up there with Paul Thomas Anderson, and what's the other one? Yeah, David Fincher is like that. He's up there with Paul Thomas Anderson in and the Coen Brothers, obviously.
Rewatchability.
The rewatchability and the timelessness of the film itself.
Ah, yeah. Yeah. And you just saw Social Network, actually, for the first time recently.
Yes, and Gone Girl, which is another Fincher film.
Right.
I've been on a bit of a
David Fincher
and Paul Thomas Anderson kick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which has been really fun.
Good. Yeah, that was... we were talking about the twist that's revealed in Fight Club, and I was mentioning to you that I saw the giveaway, if you will, and I knew that was significant, but I didn't know what it meant. But then I was like, oh, when the twist came, I was like, I get it. Like, it didn't like shock me exactly, but I was like,
See, I saw it.
One, two, three, four. Yeah. It made sense. I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah. The first time that I saw Fight Club was way before I even considered myself a cinephile. So like I wasn't analyzing it or watching or admiring things about it. I was just watching. It was just a cool movie, and people talked about it a lot. So I was like, okay. So I didn't see it coming because I was so young and I was so inexperienced in film language and like what filmmakers and directors do to show you something without telling you. And Fight Club has a lot of that.
It does.
And you can pick up on it if you know the language of film. Well, for someone who doesn't know the language of film and is just like a fresh eyes going into a film that they've heard so much about, I was shocked. And that's understandable. But it does take, like, every time you watch it, you get something new out of it anyways.
Yeah, or your feelings about it just change, even if nothing new gets shown. That's
definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. August, we kind of had a nice run. We watched several movies over the course of a week.
Yes,
we watched
did.
one that you'd been wanting to watch for a long time, and that was Safety Last.
Yep. I was really happy about that one. It made me want to see more of him. But
you know what's great about that?
Yeah.
A lot of Harold Lloyd's films you can just watch on YouTube or some other streaming site.
Yes.
Because they're before 1926.
Mm-hmm.
They are in the public domain.
Boo!
Just
isn't that fun?
all of it.
Yeah.
And that's also something that I've been doing the last 2 months.
I've noticed actually on your watch list.
I've just been watching shorts, like silent shorts.
Yeah.
From like before the 1920s. There's only like one that I actually watched from 1920 itself. Everything else I watched had been before 1920.
Jeez.
And it's been really interesting just to see like how much film language grew so quickly, and then how much it hasn't changed a whole lot. It's been improved upon.
Yes.
But the invention of it has kind of existed since 1910, 1912.
Yeah.
Like a lot of it has been there. It just hasn't been put together as pieces.
Right.
Into a whole. It was just little bits and pieces, fragments of storytelling in film.
And the people who are influential are the guys
because a lot of it from 1890, 1890s, mid 1890s is when they like started making like experimental films, like where they actually told a story with paid actors.
Right.
Before that, it was all like scientific or documentary or just doing it because it's something you want to develop, like something that you're trying to figure out. Does a horse actually come off of the ground during its run with all feet leaving the ground?
Answer is
yes.
Yes.
For actually a longer time than people thought. And that's something that, like, even if you think about it, like sequential images, they've actually kind of always been in human thought. You look at cave paintings, you see like multiple legs of a deer or a pig. You look at paintings of vases, you see multiple images of the same thing, slightly different. Yeah, and then there's another example in very lush palaces where the chariots ride through. Pillars have images on them, and they have slightly different shapes.
Yep.
So as you drive by in your chariot, you get something flashing at you and animated at you.
Yep.
That idea of sequential images has always been there, but the technology has never been there until literally like just 150 years ago.
Let's take that wheel off the chariot and put it on the pictures on that wheel, and then let's show it to everybody.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
And all the technology just developed, and then eventually we got celluloid film stock in the mid 1890s. But that being said, we watched another one called His Royal Slyness. It's another Harold Lloyd film.
That was actually pretty good.
That was really funny. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
That same day we watched one that I thought was going to be like to me, and I think it kind of brought down my enjoyment of it. I thought it was going to be at the level of
Third Man.
The Third Man,
Okay.
and that is Touch of Evil.
See, I really liked Touch of Evil.
I noticed that.
I think it's in my top 5.
Really?
Still, yeah.
Wow.
It's one movie that I rated very highly, but I've dropped since then is The Sting.
Oh.
I gave that a very high rate. I gave that 4.5 after watching that.
Huh.
It's mind thinking about it. I'm trying to like imagine like the movie and going, that was good. That was good. The Sting has dropped a little bit. The Sting was mostly propelled by a really good acting story and a nice, fun ride, like Knives Out, basically.
Oh, yeah.
So I enjoyed it a lot. But like Touch of Evil just blew me away. And I was like, whoa, this is so crazy cool.
See, and I could recognize the craft and the greatness of it, but it didn't affect me in the same way.
Interesting.
Another one that did affect me in a similar way, that you had the opposite. We switched roles for the next one. Night of the Hunter.
Yes. Yes.
See,
Good.
you notice it's good.
Yes.
I think it kind of blew me away.
Uh-huh.
Like it really the fact that this man, Charles Laughton, who's been an actor, that was his only directed film, boggles my mind. This man could direct.
If this movie I was saying had been 20 years later, it would have been a immediately
smash
classic
hit.
Yes.
It would have been in the 70s.
Yep.
And it would have been along the lines of Martin Scorsese's, like character study, and it just would have been absolutely like on fire with audiences.
Would have been crazy.
So yeah, I understand why Hollywood in the 50s didn't really care for him, because it was so ahead of its time thematically and socially.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's still like, I loved it, and it's so well made.
To conclude August, I do have to give it mention because I had wanted to watch it for a long time. I finally saw Secret of the Kells.
Aha.
And I really enjoyed that.
That one was good.
I'm very anxious to finally watch
I watched
Song of
that
the Sea.
in animation class in college.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What a good class.
Yeah.
That's a good class.
That was a good day. That was a very good day.
It was It was darker than I thought it was going to
Yeah, I know.
But it ended so well. I was like, this is... Wow, these
I
guys,
still
these
haven't
guys
seen-
hit the ground running.
I still haven't seen any of the other movies that studio's put out.
Please watch Breadwinner. Please.
It's on Netflix, right?
I don't remember.
Okay.
If it's not, I'm just going to give it to you. And then I'll take it back and watch it for me, and I'll keep it for me.
Okay. Okay. We mentioned The Sting.
Yes.
Another one that kind of blew me away.
My judgment's out because I'm going to admit I fell asleep for this one. For a forgivable reason.
Yeah, it's understandable. Out of all the films we've seen, this one is probably the easiest to fall asleep to. That's A Man Escaped, 1956.
Yes. This
Movie
movie
is a French film.
Literally almost no sound. And when there is sound,
very, very little dialogue. I'm sure the dialogue could fit on one page.
fit on a napkin.
Yeah. But all of it is carried through sound design, and just the very meticulous motion of the character's hands. And that's what I paid attention to the most. Is just from the very opening shot, we see his hands, and then we know, watch those hands. Those are going to be very important. And they were. And then we watched in the Hollywood Theater with a couple good friends, The Searchers.
Yeah. See, I'd seen this before.
One of the best Westerns of all time.
Yes. But this was new for you, right?
Yes. This was new.
So this actually went up. I think I had rated this at 2.5.
Mm-hmm. It's the
and
theater
I see
experience,
why.
isn't it?
Yes, it is. And it went up to 4.
Yeah.
If I watched it again in theaters, it'd probably go higher.
Uh-huh.
I'm just giving it time because I like to do that.
Just speeding things up. I watched one that really disappointed me.
Oh, dear.
I watched Under the Silver Lake.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that. I remember you ranted, actually.
Andrew
how bad
Garfield
that
was the only reason I watched it. I was expecting something at least a little better in terms of writing and character development and plot and, themes. None of it.
Did he at least have acting chops?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
that was what carried me through the film. But his character was so not despicable, but just pitiful.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't a good role for him. He did well in it, but I don't think it was a good role for him.
Okay, that makes sense.
The role would have been better served by another actor. Maybe like Sam Rockwell would have been excellent in that role. He would have been excellent in that role, and it would have brought something. He would have brought something completely different, which would have changed my feeling about a movie.
Okay.
Because Andrew Garfield does a really good job. He's just such a good actor, anyways. But the film just kind of falls apart for me. Okay. And the only thing I have saving grace of it is it's so chock full of details. It's overstuffed with details, but that could eventually, like, I know there's a secret story hidden in there. I know it because the movie's about secret stories. When you're making a movie like that, and the plot turns out to be such a plateau, in my opinion, it just like it flattens out and it doesn't really do anything. Like, it's just like, why did they do that as the main story? But because the movie's about like conspiracy and finding hidden details and stories, it's inevitable that they wrote a hidden story in it, or several hidden stories. The only saving grace I have for that film is reading a comment or watching a video that someone spent meticulous amounts of hours finding out all the different symbols and codes in like actual history and things that they can find to piece together a story, even if it's something that the person who was trying to find it made up. There's enough stuff in there to make something worthwhile, and that's going to be better than the film itself. So
who liked it that much? That's my question.
There's quite a good number of people who've reacted very positively to this movie.
All right.
For the simple fact that it like ignites their conspiracy theorist tendencies.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's about.
Movie. Yeah.
It's about a conspiracy theorist, and it's about a conspiracy. Not the conspiracy I thought was going to happen, but a conspiracy nonetheless. And then I watched something that's kind of not similar, but it's not similar at all. The Adjustment Bureau.
Oh yeah, that's an older one.
Really good. I like that.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
Emily Blunt. Interesting one.
Like Emily Blunt's always amazing, but she surprised me in that one. Matt Damon kind of did the Matt Damon thing,
right?
You know, this charming guy who's capable and willing to do the right thing, and then Emily Blunt was just this very, very out of left field character.
Yeah, but the story's fun too,
and it is very fun,
and it's not as I was expecting an action movie, and it isn't.
Yeah,
it's not an action movie. It's a thinking movie, but it's a high paced thinking movie.
Yeah,
but
it's a little short. They could have expanded on it and developed the world a bit, but it's fine. Like, they stayed in the rules, and it made
had
the rules
its questions
really cool.
And it had its answers, and they were like, "This is what we want."
Unfolded really nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that one was pretty good. Then we watched The Bad Sleep Well.
Right.
Which, in terms of film, it's excellent. In terms of Kurosawa, it's not so excellent.
I totally agree, actually. Like,
in terms of film, it's excellent. It's the Kurosawa film.
There's a few things that are just burned in my memory from that movie.
Absolutely.
But the best thing I can tell you about what it's about is it's Hamlet. So I'm like, okay.
It's Kurosawa doing another Shakespeare adaptation, but not entirely faithful adaptation. It's just a inspiration.
But he's done better inspirations, much better inspirations.
And also,
so that's why this one fell
fell flat because the ending was it felt very rushed. Like it went through a lot of details that they kind of set the precedent of taking a slower pace at developing.
Yeah.
They went through a lot really quickly. And the way that they told that development was very unsatisfying.
Yeah.
And anticlimactic, basically.
Makes sense.
So if it showed us what it told us, it would have been better. And it would have been up there in the echelon of Kurosawa films. But it didn't show it. It didn't show it. It told us. And it did. Well, it's a way better film in the respect of the like plateauing. Like Under the Silver Lake was not as good of a film and it plateaued. But Bad Sleep Well was excellent and then it plateaued.
Yeah.
So it didn't quite reach the same level that
Yes.
Kurosawa has reached consistently.
Yes, as we well know.
Let's just go really, really quickly through here. Okay, so
We've talked about a few of these.
we watched Prisoners.
That's number 4 on my list.
Really?
Yes.
Good.
I don't.
Good.
I can't forget that movie. It tells its story so It tells its story so well. It's gripping. It's horrifying. Scarier than some horror movies in some way, because this is not horror. This is real people reacting to situations that are real.
A very real possibility, a very real possible thing that happens because the characters are so finely tuned and developed.
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman showed more rage in this than I've ever seen him in Wolverine. That was scary. That was impressive.
Yeah. And this
just knowing that Hugh Jackman can go farther than Wolverine
is scary.
Oh.
And this made me want to watch Jake Gyllenhaal a lot more.
Oh, yes.
Like, I saw 2 Jake Gyllenhaal movies, this and Zodiac. Dave Fincher again.
Uh-huh.
And those 2 movies were like, I'm a Jake Gyllenhaal fan. Give me some
I
more.
have always been a Jake Gyllenhaal fan. I've been a Jake Gyllenhaal fan since watching Donnie Darko.
Welcome me to the club.
Watch Donnie Darko. It's a twisted, messed up movie, but it's very, very enjoyable watch, especially for Jake Gyllenhaal.
Okay.
But that's completely out of the left field. Okay, let's continue. Prisoners, excellent. I watched for the first time Polytechnic, which is another Denis Villeneuve film. That is his earliest film from his current streak of excellent films. 2009, and now it's 2020, and he's made like a movie every 2 years, a movie every 3 years, something like that. It's ridiculous. This man has put up so much incredible work in such a short amount of time compared to other directors who've taken decades to build a filmography as impressive as his. Watch his films. Just go watch all of them. I'm talking to Jacob and I'm talking to you who are listening to this right now. Watch Denis Villeneuve's films. You've been listening to us for an hour and 45 minutes now. You're invested in at least what we have to say in our opinions. My opinion is, if you haven't seen every single Denis Villeneuve movie, you are missing out. You are missing out on some of the best and most thrilling movies I have ever seen.
Prisoners is one of them.
Prisoners is one of them.
Yep.
Polytechnic is up there. It's not one of the most gripping ones, but it's still a Villeneuve film, so it's still very gripping. And it definitely leaves you feeling icky about some normal interactions you would normally see. I watched Hard 8, which is Paul Thomas Anderson's first film.
Oh, okay.
Not what I expected.
Okay.
Very much not what I expected.
See, I've only seen There Will Be Blood, which you just saw recently too.
Yes.
And that's all I have for opinion on Paul Thomas Anderson. But I at least was using that to tell you, watch this.
Uh-huh.
Please do, because you will really like this. I know this.
So that's one thing we've already established in this episode. This is a very long episode, but bear with me. We've already established in this episode, Paul Thomas Anderson makes films for the decade rather than the year. He makes them to be more timeless. He makes them to make a commentary about something that's not just relevant in the short span of time, but relevant basically for all of our modern existence. Like the things and the troubles of humanity, not so much humanity at large for all of history, but humanity at large since the Industrial Revolution.
Right.
And that's saying something, just to see a director who focuses so hard on getting into themes and characters and motivations and ideas that develop like that over a longer period of time than something like Christopher Nolan, who makes excellent films, but they're very much tied to the time that they come out.
Sort of, yes.
Hear me out. When Sight and Sound puts out their critics list of 250 best films, they rarely consider new films. Ever. The oldest film on the 2012 list is 1968's 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Newest one.
The most recent film,
yeah,
on the 250 Sight and Sound critics best movies list of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's going to be very many films from the last 30, 40, 50 years that will be like, there's probably going to be 2 or 3.
No Country for Old Men, probably.
I think actually No Country for Old Men might not make the list.
Sad.
Right. But There Will Be Blood has a very high chance of making that list.
That's interesting.
Saving Private Ryan or Schindler's List are probably in runnings with it.
Schindler's List, definitely.
But you also have to consider that for one of these new films to enter, an old film that has been established as a classic, that's like undisputed classic, 250 is not very much.
No,
that's very limiting.
This is a world thing.
Yeah,
so,
this is worldwide. 100 is very limiting for the American
AFI,
Film Institute list, which we still haven't seen all of. But that's beside the point. 250 is not very much. So these films from the last 50 years, they've got to be really strong in order to kick something out.
They need time.
And they do need time. And Paul Thomas Anderson is one of those that does, like, his films, they're not made for the first viewing experience. They are not made for the first viewing experience.
That makes sense.
They are made to sit in your mind for months and years.
Oh, yeah.
So when you revisit it, you see something completely new from a completely different perspective because you've had life experience now and you've related your life experience to what you experienced in that film that you weren't quite sure about at that moment. And then going back to it, you realize that actually influenced me in how I made decisions in my life. Maybe not so much for me, myself, but I've seen it just knowing and reading about Paul Thomas Anderson and seeing more of his films and reading about critics and what they say about his films. That has kind of shifted my mindset in this like exploratory mode that I'm in for like watching great films.
There's a lot that we need to see.
That was completely unplanned.
Yes, and so was your David Fincher. Well, no, you mentioned David Fincher.
I mean, what I just said about everything right there. I never really put that into words. I thought about it, but I never really put it into words. And I think I kind of said it fairly eloquently. That was actually, I surprised myself there. Okay. So that being said, Hard 8, because it's Paul Thomas Anderson and I've only seen it once, my opinion isn't fully formed on it, but it did impress me in some ways. It's kind of a gangster film, but it's after the fact, and you don't see any of the actual part of the gangster. It's like this old gangster who meets someone new who's down on his luck, and he's kind to him, and he shows him some things, and they kind of get in it. But this guy who he helps is kind of dumb in some ways. Huh. He's nice, but he's dumb in some ways.
I'm intrigued.
And so he gets into some stupid stuff. And so this old gangster bails him out, and that's just kind of the story. But it does something very interesting with that cliche of like an old gangster, someone like The Irishman. We've seen The Irishman, but that's different, a completely different type of film. Uh-huh. With Hard 8, it's I assume when you're talking about Paul Thomas Anderson, you can't really nail it down, but the main character you think is the one that's sympathetic at the beginning, which is John C. Reilly's character.
Okay.
But the main character that this film is telling us about is the old gangster. So we see it through the perspective of this guy who's kind of down on his luck, and he's kind of dumb, and then not dumb, but he's not smart. So he makes some bad decisions, and he gets bailed out by his mentor. So we think the mentor is just like the guy who's just like the old wise man who instigates and sets him on his way, right? Nope, it's about the whole. Basically, the story is about his involvement in this guy's life and what happens after that.
Huh. Okay, I'm interested.
It's interesting.
I'm interested. Yeah.
I think it's still on Netflix. No, it's still on Amazon.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
So if you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it on Amazon Prime Video. Okay, so this is turning into our longest episode. Have we talked about Road to Perdition?
Yes, we did, actually.
Okay.
Yep.
So that was pretty good.
That's Sam Mendes.
It's Sam Mendes.
Yep.
Yep.
And I can actually see the similarities a little bit too.
True.
Very
just some of
easy,
the feeling of going
very
through
slow.
A sequence.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
He likes wide open spaces apparently,
which is very nice.
Yeah.
And it works in both of those films.
Yeah.
Then we watched A Monster in Paris.
Oh yeah,
animated.
Yeah, I'd seen that before.
And that was the first time I'd seen it.
Yep.
It was pretty good.
Yeah, it's surprising how good it was actually.
Yeah.
I was like, this is fun. Good job.
I watched Mary Poppins Returns.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Okay. What did you think?
I liked it. It was
Okay.
Emily Blunt. I pretty much will like anything that Emily Blunt's in.
I have a feeling you liked it better than I did.
I enjoyed it. Did you not enjoy it?
It was hard to.
So I had a caveat because the people that I watched it with had on their TV the frame rate setting that you and I were bothered by when we tried to watch
Oh, The
The
Mandalorian.
Mandalorian. And they had that set on their TV. They usually watch sports or something, so that's usually that's just the setting
Right,
that
yeah.
they have, and it's really good with sports because it lets you see things way better.
Mm-hmm.
But the frame interpolation of TVs is very jarring for film because it makes 24 frames into interpolated 48 frames.
Ugh. Yeah,
And that's kind of disgusting.
it is. It looks it makes people
So-
look fake and cartoony.
I think my opinion of it is downplayed and down influenced on it based on that, but I still enjoyed.
Really?
I
That
still
probably
enjoyed the
means you're
character.
really gonna like it.
Maybe I liked it. I liked it. It was okay.
I gave it a decent rating, but I was like, it's bothered by the fact that this is not Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins is one of my favorite movies ever,
True.
and it's Emily Blunt's good,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not as
I'll
it's
say
not as bad
she's
as
probably the best actor in it.
that's
The rest of the characters
true.
are very weak.
Yes, that's true.
Very
That is
weak.
true. Oh yeah, Emily Blunt's good. I'm not doubting her.
No,
acting
yeah, I know.
prowess
I'm
at
just
all.
saying in a pool of that, she is at the top. She rises to the top like
it's in the same category as trying to recast
oil and water.
someone else's Han Solo.
Yeah.
That's Harrison Ford. Julie Andrews is Mary Poppins.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So there's a couple others I do want to mention before we close this out. Some Christmas movies that I watched for the first time. Rise of the Guardians. Which was,
I've never seen that one actually.
I was not impressed. I liked it, but it was bad.
Really?
Liked it, but it was bad.
Didn't it look cool though?
It looked all right. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just one of those. I I have not bad. I have a
Okay, let me just interrupt you for 1 second. Is this the owl one?
This is the mythical.
Oh, Jack Frost and Claus,
Yes.
the Easter Bunny. Oh, okay. Which one?
Yeah.
Which one's the owl one?
That is Legend of the Guardians.
Something like that? Okay.
It's Guardian. No, it's Guardians Owls of Gahul or something like that.
Okay. Different thing. Okay.
Something.
Rise of the Guardians. I know what you're
Rise
talking
of the
about.
Guardians is the one with Jack Frost
Yes.
and Santa and the Easter Bunny.
And everyone ships Jack Frost with Elsa. Yes.
Right, because they're both ice and they're attractive people. I don't know. I liked it, but it was bad.
I can't remember much of it, but I was
And
okay with
I
it.
have a thing against most 3D animated films, and you know this about me. So we'll leave it at that. This is the first time I've appreciated It's a Wonderful Life. When I saw it during Christmas time. Because the only time I saw it was a long time ago.
See, I think you missed what makes this movie good. Is you have to
I
watch
caught
it
it.
once a year.
I caught it this time though.
You did.
Oh yes.
Who are you with?
It's very different when you're watching it as an adult.
Oh, it's hecka different
It's
as an
like-
adult.
and
It
that's the
means
biggest
everything to
thing.
you.
That's the biggest thing that I noticed this time. I loved it this time. It's one of my favorite Christmas movies now.
It's
just-
one of my favorite movies, period.
Okay, so let's go back. So I just talked about some Christmas movies, but
You're getting into Christmas. Good job. We're Christmas movies. Slowly.
just the good ones.
Slowly.
Just the good ones.
Slowly. That's the thing about any genre, though. You sift through the bad ones, you could find the good ones.
Yeah, but I don't know. Something about it just made me not want to watch the bad ones.
Oh,
Okay,
there's
so,
millions of bad ones.
One last one we're going to talk about because it's the last one that you and I watched that was in 2019, and that was Roman Holiday.
Yes, we had an episode about that one. And that one, I think, after some second thought, I'd put that as my number 5
Mm-hmm.
for favorites of
I think I put it at
2019.
4 or 5, which I haven't ordered any of the ones that we watched other than Whisper of the Heart and The Third Man.
Yeah, 1 and 2.
Yeah. So I don't know what stands at 3, 4, and 5, but this one is going to be up there somewhere because it was just so delightful.
Yeah, I like how
it was Audrey Hepburn's breakout role.
Yes. I like how my list has like 3 like super dark, like the worst parts of humanity exposed in the middle, but then it's just sandwiched by like the most amazing, like heartwarming stories ever. Whisper of the Heart and Roman Holiday. I don't know. Does that say something about the year? I don't know. Well, someone else mentions that.
I mean, it says something about the medium.
Yeah.
Because we got an old Hollywood style noir thriller, and we have a Japanese animated, just heartwarming story. Like, just seeing that range of what film can bring to an audience, and both are so excellent. They're up in the top 20s for me. Both of them are up in the top 20s now. That says something, just like for our movie watching experience, and for the fate of film itself as a medium of artistic expression and human thought.
It's gonna go on for a long time.
Oh yeah, and there will be more that we will discover, and I am excited about that.
Yes, it's a sad thought though that it just occurred to me a while back ago. It's a sad thought that there's going to be great movies on my watch list that I know I even want to watch, not even ones I don't know about, but ones I want to watch that I will never see.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that made me sad when I thought about that.
Yeah,
I was just like, there's beautiful things or beautiful stories that I won't be able to see.
But we're in a pretty good spot right now, because there's several working directors who are making really good stuff, and we'll be able to see it in theaters.
I know we're in a good spot in history.
We're in a very good spot.
Thank you.
Yeah. One thing I just wanted to add into my little Paul Thomas Anderson tangent. I'd seen Phantom Thread back when it was nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah.
And that was the only Paul Thomas Anderson I'd seen. That one still holds its strength in my mind.
Really?
Because of the time that has been spent between watching it and talking about it and thinking about it. And when I revisit it, it's probably going to jump up pretty high on my personal favorite list. He's got a way with filmmaking. It's undeniable.
I'm curious.
So eventually I will watch all of Paul Thomas Anderson's. I've seen 3 now of his, in addition to Phantom Thread. I've seen Heart 8, I've seen Magnolia, and I've seen There Will Be Blood. So I have 4 Paul Thomas Anderson films left. I have The Master, I have Punch Drunk Love,
yeah.
I have Boogie Nights, and I have Inherent Vice. All of which I have different reasons to watch. 3 reasons why I want to watch The Master is because of Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, he was nominated for that one.
Philip Seymour Hoffman, and actually, the art director, David Crank, who worked on Knives Out, and I was extremely impressed with that.
Ooh.
So, and then Punch Drunk Love is held up as Adam Sandler's best drama performance, maybe rivaled by Uncut Gems of 2019, which is another one. But
yeah,
so
I remember that one.
Eventually, I will have an opinion on all of Paul Thomas Anderson's films, and for the amount of time I've talked about him in this episode, that's going to be something.
Yep. Next episode, we've mentioned it a few times already. We're going to be talking about the favorites. So we just talked about 2019. This was a really good year. Thank you, 2019. We're going to go back and talk about the 2010s and our favorites of the past year, or the past decade, excuse me. And then we'll talk about 2020, because we've already started to mention it, but 2020 looks to be very busy and very packed. And you've already seen a 2020 movie so far this year, before me. Congratulations. But we'll get to those. So thanks for listening, everybody.
We'll see you next time.